I keep trying to think of jokes that don't involve me just saying, "Fuck you, Luke, I'm getting new friends," but I don't know, I just hate him too much to be creative. Lord help me, he's back on his bullshit. Luke, my dude, if you're injured on a battlefield, I will leave you to die. Yep, we sure are bringing this up in the prologue. But, I mean, when's the last time you've ever gotten a healer in a prologue? It's just impossible. Wow, what a coincidence! We just so happened to be joined by the class we were just talking about. Amazing! Wrys, you're suddenly my favorite. I can almost forgive having 1,000,000 of you in Fire Emblem Heroes. That's a lie, I only have like 3. Don't worry about Luke, he's a moron. In that he's already promoted, so have fun failing, idiots. God. Okay, so, a promoted character who's also a fairly prominent general. Alright, cool, yeah. Thanks, Jagan. Really glad you want us to fail now. Alright, so, this map actually differs depending on which option you chose at the end of the last chapter, and because of my choice between yes or no, I'm now fighting George. Wow, good job transitioning to the character bios. Jeez, past me, you make me do all the work. Anyway, this is Seda. You might have noticed, but her skill speed and luck growth rates are amazing, and her starting speed means nothing is going to double her in this prologue. It is, however, worth noting that until promotion, all stats for any class and characters with the exception of HP cap out at 20, so you're going to be seeing Seda reach her max speed very quickly. While her starting skill is much lower, she's also going to get a lot of that and luck early on. In fact, honestly, unless you get unlucky, they're all going to cap out fairly quickly. Her HP isn't half bad either. Of course, she's mainly intended to be more of a dodge-heavy character, but she can take at least a few hits thanks to that HP. That being said though, her strength growth rate is very low, and her resistance, despite being a Pegasus Knight, which is normally a very resistant class, isn't really her best stat. Of course, she does start with 6 resistance, which, don't get me wrong, is quite a bit higher than most characters' resistance. That being said, 10% means, unless you get really lucky, it's probably not going to hit double digits, at least not for a while. That being said though, Seda does actually have one pretty big trick up her sleeve, though it doesn't apply to the prologue, and that's her signature weapon, the Wing Spear. It was added to the DS remakes. It grants Seda a 10% increase in critical hit rate, and it's effective against both cavalry and knights. Basically, it augments her already high critical hit rate, and it does a good job of alleviating that low strength growth rate, at least a little bit. So, if there's one thing you have to learn about Arcania, it's this. Old people are always the worst. And unfortunately, Wrys here isn't really an effective healer. Of course, to be fair, you don't need an amazing magic stat to heal. I mean, you do better if you do have a high magic stat, but a 30% growth rate doesn't prevent him from healing, right? Okay, so Wrys is really weird in that his only really good stats are luck and resistance, so, I guess he's really good at not dying to other mages? He won't be crit by them, I guess? I mean, at least for a while you don't have you shouldn't worry about getting him into fights anyway, but still, it would be nice if he had, like, anything else. That being said, if you're wondering how powerful dunking on Luke makes you, unlike Shadow Dragon, where I immediately wrote Wrys off because you get a better healer a few chapters later, I would actually consider Wrys now. So yeah, all you gotta do is dunk on Luke, even accidentally, and I respect you a lot. So good on you, Wrys. You accidentally made yourself useful. Ish. Anyway, back to the game, which past me won't even acknowledge because she fucked up. So, the nice thing about George is he won't actually go towards you until you get into his range. It's everything else about him that's terrible. Your alternative choice for this chapter is Athena. There's also a slightly different enemy formation, but we'll be seeing that later. Now, Athena actually will rush to you, so yeah, the moment she gets a turn, she's actually going to approach, meaning this chapter's a little more fast-paced than that one. It definitely makes you think differently. It's a bit of a different strategy, but other than that, it's not a huge deal, and honestly, Athena's a lot easier. Of course, because he is an archer, or a promoted archer rather, George can be surrounded. Of course, in this game, archers can't attack the immediate area around them, so if you have him pinned, he can't attack you, and as long as you don't, move any enemies into his range, he's functionally useless. The problem is, because of the way this map is laid out and where he is, you can't surround him. At least not until he approaches you. And the thing about that is, I have some pretty miserable luck when it comes to this chapter. I don't remember when it started. I think it was my run like 2 or 3 years ago. And ever since then, I have never not been crit by George at least once in an attempt at this chapter, and of course this LP was no different. I definitely got crit by him, which is why I'm now using Iris instead of Rhodey, because Rhodey could not stop being crit. Like, his critical hit chance isn't even that high, but for some reason, he can just consistently crit me all day every day. It's honestly kind of annoying. I wish he'd stop. It always complicates this chapter in a way I don't want. That being said though, Athena is a Myrmidon, just like Iris. She's not promoted, but again, she does approach you. And the good thing is, well, she is pretty fast, but despite being a Myrmidon, and Myrmidons normally having a pretty high critical hit chance, I have not had her crit me. And of course you'll have at least 2 Lance users on the team, provided one hasn't been defeated in battle. Oh, speaking of which, since it's about to come up, since this is the prologue, characters cannot permanently die. However, they can be taken out of the prologue. If they're defeated, you don't have access to them anymore. So you still shouldn't let people die, because if you do, they'll come back after the prologue, but it's nice to have them now. And of course, we don't have access to the sniper just yet. Instead, we're getting Ryan's brother Gordon. Gordon, of course, was in Shadow Dragon. He was a random archer that Marth very nearly murdered, and thankfully, because he wasn't killed, he was able to go into exile with Marth and eventually maybe help out in ending the war. He didn't for me, I used a different archer. So yeah, this is what I was talking about before. This depends on how many characters have been defeated, but of course, we scored perfectly because nobody's died, even Luke. And believe me, the temptation to just toss him in danger is quite high. Not his horse. His horse is innocent, and I would like to free Luke's horse from him, but regardless. Ah, my favorite cutscene! This is a very good one. So, it's the middle of the night, I guess Iris just got up for a glass of water, and oh, it's Elise, the Princess of Altia. How's it going? You want to have a casual chat in the middle of the night, Elise? Whoops, I got lost. How's it going? Yeah, a lot of people have done that, but I really doubt any of them have talked to you. So yeah, this is pretty great. Hero King? Marth? Nah. My brother Marth is just a gigantic baby. Oh, poor Marth, what a twit, but seriously. He is just the world's biggest child. Hello, random knight, let's strike up a conversation. You hear about my baby brother who is a gigantic baby? So I actually really like this characterization of Marth, and unfortunately, just like in Shadow Dragon, we really don't see any of this outside of the prologue. I mean, it's in there a little more than any of Marth's development in Shadow Dragon, in which he started and it seemed like he'd go from, vengeful child to, oh, super empathetic. In theory, Marth would be like the best nice lord? Kind lord? Empathetic lord? Whatever you want to call him. There are a whole lot of them, and if they actually went through with any of the characterization they imply Marth has, he'd be my favorite. As it stands, though, it's probably Erica? Especially the Restoration Queen version? Yeah, I'd say so. It's not Corrin, I can say that for sure. That's the opposite of the point of this walk, Luke. Stop feeling rejuvenated. Oh, great. We're getting chewed out by Luke. Lovely. Well, this sucks. We're lost, and Luke's yelling at us, and it's actually a legitimate complaint. Goddamn. We can't even pass this off as, oh, we were just bringing you out here so you could be eaten by wolves. Ugh, this is the worst day of my life. Yeah, that's kind of the point of getting unlost, is to not wander aimlessly. Wait, if we march all night, we could find some wolves. Oh, what's happening off screen? You can't see it, but she's pointing. Ah, dang. Village got burnt down. Okay, we're resetting the chapter. Sorry, everyone. Okay, this is a weird sight. A drunken masked man is shouting at a thief to burn down a village. Okay, sure, let's go with that. Alright, with that being done, I suppose we should talk about Gordon. So the weird thing about Gordon is, he's just flat out worse than Ryan. None of his stats are higher, bar his luck, which for an archer doesn't really matter that much, and even if it does matter to you, it's only higher by 10%, so it's not like it's even that amazing. The main thing Gordon has going for him is pretty much just he has higher starting stats, but even then, he also starts 4 levels higher than Ryan, meaning Ryan does have a chance to match his stats by the time he gets to level 5, or possibly even pass him. There's a pretty good chance he'll at least pass him in skill, so yeah, Gordon is just much worse, and you get him later. Oh, and that's not even counting going to Athena's version of the previous chapter instead of George's, because then you don't get Gordon until the prologue's done. I really don't know why they just made Gordon much worse. They could have made him like a different kind of archer, maybe like more of a tanky one or something, but no. just a worse Ryan. You know, it just occurred to me that I didn't really get a good transition points for the last chapter. Oh well, whatever. Future me can work that out. Anyway, while I would love to talk about the song that's currently happening, I should probably talk about the chapter itself first, because I guess that's important. So, this chapter starts a bit tricky. Absolutely use the fortresses. Do not rush in, because there are a lot of enemies, and they actually do a bit of damage. Like, 6 doesn't seem like much, but A, we're on a fortress, and B, there's quite a few people. We also have that archer, meaning you can't really bring Seda in to kill anybody early on, because they're going to defend this area rather well. Oh, yeah, and thankfully, that thief can't reach Iris, because otherwise she would be dead. Luke's not holding up all that well either, but I don't care about him. And here comes someone to help. It's Merrick. Ah yes, everybody knows you can only command an army if you have deep purple hair. Which begs quite a few questions about Marth's leadership. So, I guess it's time to talk about Merrick. So, Merrick's a decent mage who specializes in a very similar way to Seda. He's got high skill speed and luck, good HP, and everything else is okay, not amazing. Of course, he also has Excalibur, and like Seda, that mostly functions as his signature weapon. Of course, other characters can use it, they just won't be able to for quite a while, especially considering you don't get that many mages, so unless you're class changing, it's pretty much just him. That being said though, Merrick does have a pretty big drawback. He starts at level 10, but his base stats aren't amazing. His speed's not terrible, especially since he has a decent speed growth rate, but still, everything's kinda so-so. Of course, considering everybody's resistance, 7 magic? Pretty good. That will probably roast most enemies you come across. Okay, Merrick has been talked about. Music time! Because clearing out these enemies with the number of characters we have now should be pretty easy. So, this music is One Who Carves a New History. It is unfortunately a new song to this game, meaning we don't get to hear it very much. It's only for chapters specific to the remake of this game, which sucks because I want to hear this song so much more than it actually plays. It's so good! Honestly, like, pre-Awakening and definitely pre-Fates, I always thought Fire Emblem music was okay. You know, it's good of course, it's just not quite my thing. But this absolutely, probably even with the inclusion of the newer games, is one of my favorite songs in the series. It's also one of the few times when I've liked, like, the map theme, because usually if I do have a favorite song in a Fire Emblem game, it's like the enemy battle theme, which is kind of ironic because, quite frankly, while this game did have quite a few features that it would appear in Awakening, dynamic music isn't one of them, and I think that's such a shame. I would love to hear a low-key version of this song, only to have it ramp up when you're actually fighting someone. Like, really, dynamic music is just so good. And, you know, Echoes I liked, but also I did kind of miss the dynamic music, because of course they had to do it like they did in the older games, and just, you know, have map music, then battle music, and so on and so forth. Stuff like that, and again, obviously, they had to go off their original soundtrack, but you know, miss the dynamic music, that's the best way to go about it. It helps that they've also been making some really memorable songs in general, but just, God, the fucking fast-paced version of songs now are just so good. Now, we are almost at the end of the chapter though, so I probably shouldn't just list off all the Fate songs I like, because we'd be here for a while if I ended up doing that. Instead, let's talk about this guy. The boss of this chapter is actually really good stat-wise. He's fairly fast, so unless you're using an actually speed-dedicated character, he could actually end up doubling you. Or at the very least, he'll end up being equal in speed. Thankfully, that's not a problem for Iris. It is a problem for Ryan, though, and I would like him to get more experience, because Iris is getting quite a bit. His defense and HP aren't amazing, which is good. That's probably the easiest part of this fight, but he can end up hurting quite a bit. He's got some pretty high damage on him, especially for a hand axe. Of course, his aim isn't amazing, but he is an early game boss using a hand axe, and hand axes are inaccurate. So, not too bad a battle. Just had to soften him first, and then I could kill him with a weaker unit. You're that government agent, Merrick the Wind Mage! Oh, he's not that famous. He didn't even do anything in the last war. But we're lost too! Da-da-da-da-da-da. We were supposed to get owned! Which is fine by her. Was Ein that generic bandit? 'Cause if so, I've got some bad news about Ein. They're trying to kill Marth. Gulp. Here's another choice that affects the next chapter, and also whether Iris pays attention to anything ever. We are answering yes, there is something wrong, because Iris noticed a man in a mask all the way from across the map, which, to be fair, is some pretty impressive eyesight considering there were like 10 forests in the way. I mean, it's probably the worrying and the walking. There was a lot of both, really. Don't worry guys, I'm the casual boss. You can all be casual around me. Ah yes, Marth, known for being a stern rule follower over a person who cares about the lives of his people. Yeah, that's totally Marth. Real stickler for the rules, even if you saved lives. He just gives us a death glare constantly. Honestly, it's pretty hostile. I never would have guessed he likes us. Wow, I kind of feel sorry for the other cadets now. Hey, how's it going? You guys killed some bandits? Okay, not only do you basically have a guarantee of a job, but if you pass, you have a guarantee of the best job. Like, at this point, why even try? Well, those knights are gonna be royal guards. Oh, shit. I was hoping it would be me, but no, they've got it in already. My dad told me I should have made connections and I didn't listen to him. Why didn't I try networking? Maybe then I could have spoken with Marth.